So I'm here with Darryl James, the former editor-in-chief of Rap Sheet and editor for the Hip Hop Countdown and Report, a nationally syndicated radio show. He's also written films, books. Man, I'm honored to have you here. You know, you're a legend. You know, Rap Sheet when I was growing up was the most important publication right next to the Source. You know, can you tell me a little bit about your background? Because you were actually like a journalist. Because we live in this age, like where everyone calls themselves a journalist. They haven't written anything. They just come in and give their opinion online, and they're a journalist. So like, can you tell me like
Right.
how you became a journalist?
Well, we we had a little bit of that back in the 90s. We had a lot of people who weren't formally educated who jumped in, but most of them, after being in for a minute, actually did well. For me, I have a degree in journalism from Cal State Northridge.
Okay.
Before I graduated, I was already writing. I started writing for the local Black newspapers while I was a senior in college. And then, funny part is, I actually started writing for The Source while I was still in school. When they first started, I was writing for The Source. And then I started my first magazine that same year called Rappin, Rappin. And I'm going to grab a copy of it and show it in a minute. Then I started writing for all kind of music industry publications, Black Radio Exclusive, Right On, Black Beat. Um, BET had a magazine, YSB. I wrote for them as well. And then I started writing for the Hip Hop Countdown and Report, and I became the editor and producer. We had like 100 and something stations nationwide, including the original K Day, 1580 K Day that was 24-hour hip hop. And then in 1992, I started Rap Sheet with my partner Jeffrey Stern, who had just sold Details magazine. And so, we wanted to do something different. So we did it on newsprint, like the original Rolling Stone. I brought in real journalists because I didn't want it to be, you had a lot of hip hop journalists thought, oh, if I write something nasty about a hip hop artist, that's going to make me look cutting edge, which no, it didn't. Just make you like a damn fool. Especially if the artist came to see you. Because I had one writer who wrote something real goofy about Hammer, and somehow it slipped through because I was traveling. And Hammer called me and he was like, "Hey man, I need to come see that dude." And I was like, "No, brother, we don't need to do that." But I was like, yeah, just, come and talk to me. So I did it and we wrote a different piece. Had the same thing with Easy E too. And he and I ended up becoming like very, very good friends. So yeah, it was a good ride, and yes, it was about journalism and journalistic integrity more than anything else. And I think that was the thing that made it. Plus, we were Black owned, so I think that was the thing that really made people happy.
I feel like it's a delicate balance, like, especially like, when you're a publication and you depend on artists, was there ever any times where it was like maybe you had to like put out a story? How do you be sensitive and like, respect, like, and still keep the relationship with the artist and not offend them? Cause like, sometimes the truth like hurts and people don't want the truth to come out, especially if it's like, a topic like, I think of just like so many instances in hip hop, like, where people like didn't want like, the truth to come out or try to hide it. You can talk about like, what's going on with Diddy, so like publications sometimes like don't publish these things because like, they fear legal action or they fear, being addressed, and especially in the 90s, which was
Yeah.
like,
Well, that wasn't my issue. I wasn't afraid of anybody. I know people say that and they try to play gangster. I wasn't a gangster. I was just a grown man who didn't take shit off people. So I printed what I wanted to print, did whatever story I wanted to do. And if you didn't like it, you can come see me. We didn't have bars on the window. I was just in there like, hey, what do you want to do? And people respected that. You bring up Puffy. I did a really, really bad interview. Well, it wasn't an interview. I just wrote up a piece and I trashed him because when Biggie died, I found out Biggie died broke. I saw his contract, which was horrible. I don't want to get into all the details because things have changed. We don't have CDs anymore, but basically every song that we would hear from Biggie that had a hit from the 80s was a remix. And for the remix, they took the artist's money. So Biggie wasn't getting anything, and Puffy was ripping him off. And I kept requesting interviews, and he kept dodging me. And finally, they're on a tour bus, and the publicist said, "No one on the tour bus has a cell phone." Like, what? Like, get out of my face with that. So, I started flying from city to city. We're on their tour, trying to see this dude. And then I wrote a piece in Rap Sheet. On the cover, it said, "Why is this man on the mic?" If you want, I've got a stack of my issues next
Yeah.
to me. I'll pull it. But it said, "Why is this man on the mic?" And I talked about all the horrible things he did. And at the end of it, I said, if he doesn't like it, we can get together and fight on pay-per-view. And like I wanted to really fight him on pay-per-view. And I was like, if I win, he just has to stop rhyming. If he wins, then I'll write a glowing interview or biography or whatever. And of course, he kept avoiding me. And he started telling people I was one of the biggest gangsters on the West Coast. Which is funny because I'm from Chicago, so I'm like, whatever,
I'm
dude.
from Chicago too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, South Side, man. I went to South Shore.
Okay. South side. I went to Luther South.
Oh, okay. My cousin went to Luther South. Okay, yeah.
Uh, you talk about Puffy, like, and like, the 90s, particularly, like, I think of the East Coast, West Coast beef, and like, the biggest CEOs, like, from the West Coast being Suge Knight, and the biggest
I'm
one.
sorry. I'm just gonna
Okay.
look for these magazines.
Go ahead.
I can still hear you. I just wanted to reach
Yeah,
for them.
the biggest CEOs being Suge Knight, and then Puffy, Diddy now. You know, did you ever have any run-ins with Suge Knight?
Well, no. And let me say this first off: there was no East Coast West Coast war.
Right.
That was completely fabricated by goofballs in the media. What there was Pac and Biggie had problems, and then it turned into Bad Boy and Death Row had problems, and that was it. And then my thing with Suge Knight, people thought he was some big bad boogeyman, but I literally spoke to him directly and told him some of the things that I thought, and decided what I wanted our relationship to be, and he was like, okay. I didn't have problems with him. I really didn't have problems with anybody. I had an issue with Puffy, but he didn't want to face it, and that was it. But as far as Suge, running around just being this, this terror, I didn't have those issues.
Were you surprised about the allegations that have come out against Diddy, like, today, like, recently, like he just settled that lawsuit with Cassie? Um,
Well, yes and no. I mean, I guess I'm not really surprised because women really need to get it together because otherwise there's going to be a huge backlash. All of this 30 years later coming out with, oh, he did this, he did that. Cassie was with him like 10 plus years, and then all of a sudden it's a problem. It's like, okay, if you were with him for 2 months and he did that stuff to you, okay, but you were with him for 10 years. Sit your punk ass down somewhere. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm
I
not a big Diddy fan, but I'm just like, listen, if something happens, stop being around that dude.
It seems like a cash grab. Like I think like a lot of like these
Yes.
accusations against like celebrity men. I like kind of like what Russell Simmons said in his recent interview with Graham Bensinger, where he was saying like maybe like we have to believe women, but like maybe it's a problem with like women and celebrity men, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
you know
I don't think we have to believe women. I think we have to believe people who are credible. I'm not into that. Oh, believe all women. I think that's bullshit. I'm just gonna be real honest about it because I think when it comes to sexual allegations, I think a lot of these women are lying. And I'm just gonna be honest. And then they say, "Oh, you hate women." Oh, shut up. No, I hate liars, and I think a lot of them are lying. And then they start piling in, and then that little bitch, little bastard, Columbus Short. the actor, and he came out and said, "Oh yeah, you know, champagne bottles and the ones that were open." And Puffy said, "Oh, don't mess with those." I'm like, "Come on, what? You're a man, you're an actor. Why are you saying this crap?" I'm like, "Did he touch you, Columbus? Did you
Right.
like it? You know
But
what I mean?"
but that seems like it's a verifiable story because other people have repeated that they were, you know, I think I saw interviews with Gene Deal where he was saying that they used to spike
Mm-hmm.
off, but it seemed like it was more like accepted in the 90s. Like, you know, it wasn't like, you know, so like, you know, like now we look at it like that's a horrible thing to do, but like
It would have been a horrible thing to do back then. It was never acceptable. It was not okay. It's never been okay to slip crap into people's drinks and then do stuff to them. That's never been okay. And
right.
that's why for me, Gene, Columbus, whoever else, these women, it's like if you saw it then, you bastard, you should
Yeah,
have
why
said
would they say
something.
anything then? Yeah, like,
Right,
you know,
right.
like now
You
they're coming out that
should
that
have done something.
well,
Yeah. So to say, I mean, for
well, like
me,
speaking about that, because that brings up
yeah,
another issue. We live in an era of checkbook journalism. You know, like Gene Deal, he's getting like, you know, about like $5,000, you know, per interview sometimes. You know, so like that's incentive and stuff. I think for like people to go and they could say anything. Do you think like checkbook journalism is real journalism? I think of like, you know, DJ Vlad. He regularly pays people for interviews. You know,
yeah, I mean it's trash. It's not journalism. It's just sensationalism, you know, to get clicks, likes, and grow your audience so you can, you know, make money. That's what it's about. Like, why are you paying these people? I mean, quite frankly, if I'm down bad and I need money and somebody says, "Hey D, you were around in the 90s, we'll give you 50,000." I don't know. You know what I mean? That's what we're dealing with. So, but that's not journalism. That's bullshit. You know, and these people are clowns to say because so what I was about to say is, listen, I'm a grown man, and I was a grown man back then. I was very, very young, but I was a grown man. If I went to a party and people were slipping drugs into someone's drink, first I would have stomped on all the damn bottles. That's what would have happened. I would have
right?
called the police, and somebody would have got their ass whipped. But I wouldn't sit there and go, "Oh wow, they're poisoning people." And then 20 years later, yeah, he put drugs in those drinks. Oh my God, oh, it was horrible. That's come on, that's not manly. That's some bitch shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, like I mean, you were actually like, you know, living in LA during the 90s riots in 1992. Like you actually lived on Normandy and you wrote a book about the riots. You know, can you talk
Yes.
about like, you know, that experience?
Yeah, so for me, when I came to LA, I was doing stuff. I worked, juvenile hall. I did some worked with some of the people who were doing gang intervention. So I knew some of the stuff that was happening on the streets, and basically, it wasn't about just people deciding that they wanted to loot. Listen, it was funny to me to watch on television live. I'm watching 40 and 50-year-old Mexicans running down the street with sofas and mattresses on their head. And I'm listening to these trash reporters, all the Bloods and the Crips, the gangsters. And I'm like, that's a 45-year-old Mexican man. So a lot of it was hype and it was BS. But what I knew, and I knew this from talking to police, and there was a cop in my book that I actually spoke to. I knew it from talking to some of the gangsters who were on the street that wasn't about just Rodney King. It was a lot. It was Latasha Harlins, who had been shot by Sun Jadu, the Korean demon who shot her in the back of the head over orange juice. It was the mistreatment of Black people on the street by police. So it was a lot. And quite frankly, it was supposed to be a war against the police. And the chief of police at the time, Daryl Gates, pulled the police out of the community. And that's why he did it, because he knew that they were about to get murked out there.
Wow. You know, like so many like, you know, great journalists from the 90s, you've transitioned to film. You know, I think that's like really great, like, you know, to see like, you know, the take like storytelling to a different level, like, you know, and you've written films like Love in a Day. Like, you know, what caused you to want to pursue the entertainment industry?
Well, I mean, it's just, it's a natural transition. If you're an entertainment writer, creator, then there are certain avenues that you're going to pursue. I mean, I'm going to do TV as well. I have a TV pilot that I'm about to pitch. Love in a Day was a stage play for almost 5 years. We traveled with it, Chicago, DC. We did our thing. And when we were done, I rewrote the script into a screenplay. And then we got it shot and got a distribution deal. It's on Amazon Prime right now. I'm working on a couple more films, but I'm also doing a documentary on the golden age of hip hop.
Right. And like, you have like, a book that's coming out, like, it's a limited edition of Rap Sheet art book. Can you talk about
Yes,
that?
yeah, it's called the Rap Sheet Magazine Legacy Collection. We did almost 100 issues, and I have all of them. I'm only missing four, and so I'm going to do a series of books, art books that will showcase not only the covers of Rap Sheet, but also some of the artwork from the inside. And so I found that Puffy issue.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is Puffy. Why is that man on the mic? But we had a lot of. I'm going to show some of them. We had a lot of issues that were just beautiful covers.
All
You
right.
know what I mean? Just
What would you say was like, one of your favorite covers?
um, probably Rakim because Rakim is my favorite MC.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Yeah, here it is. The God Rakim. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that's my man. I like those. I like, we did a lot of issues, like we did female MCs,
Queen
and
Latifah,
we
yeah.
didn't, yeah, and we didn't do these MCs just because, oh, we're gonna do a ladies issue. We just did, if I go through and do my top 10 MCs, Queen Latifah, Light, and Yo Yo are gonna be in there, not because they're female, there's no female MC
Yeah.
section, but because they're dope as hell. Like
Oh,
Yo Yo,
who
yeah.
like who's the other seven? Like because you named
Oh,
three.
okay, so you got, of course, Rakim, KRS-One, Chuck D. Then, yeah, you got Yo Yo, MC Light, Queen Latifah, Ice Cube. Who else would be in there? Um, Common. I don't know if that's 10. I've never really like listed the 10
Yeah,
in
yeah,
my
that's
head, but those are just like some of the dopest MCs for me.
yeah. Do you feel like you because you named Ice Cube? I feel like a lot of times he gets overlooked, and I think
Yeah,
there's
because people don't know, they don't know shit about music. That's
it's
why.
do you think it's a regional bias like those sometimes too? Like
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Look, when we start, a couple of weeks ago, I was having a discussion about diss tracks, and people were like, oh, yeah, Tupac, he did Ether, Jay-Z did. Nah. The number one diss track is Ice Cube. Ice Cube was a pure lyricist and a pure MC. And when
it's
he
also a solo song.
and
That's
it was
yeah,
solo. So
yeah.
that was big too. But I mean, he let everybody have it. The lines in there are cold blooded, and the track was banging. Pox was cool, but it wasn't as vicious um as Ice Cube. Ether was dope. Ether would probably be my number two, but hell, Easy's diss track would probably be number three. Jay-Z's it wouldn't even rank. I thought it was lukewarm bullshit. You know what I mean? So, just because somebody's a popular MC doesn't mean that everything they do, they don't shit, gold, you know?
You said Chuck D, and it reminds me of like the remarks that Andre 3000 made recently, where he was saying like he feels like he doesn't really have anything to rap about as he gets older. What's he gonna do? Like rap about getting a colonoscopy, which like Chuck D actually has a song like like that, which is pretty good. Like what are your thoughts about like are you still tuned in to like the rappers in your top 10 like when they put out new material?
Yes and no. Sometimes I'll catch stuff, but I'm not really listening to new music like that anymore.
Right.
I'm really still listening to stuff from, 79 all the way up, until the early 2000s. I have a 16-year-old son, so he'll play some stuff for me. And I'm like, oh, okay, some Drake stuff I like. Drake is a big cornball, but some of his stuff I like. But
You think
he's
he's
played
corny? Why do you think he's corny, Drake?
because his stuff is formulaic. You
Yeah.
know, Drake
It,
is not gonna he's
he
not
doesn't
gonna
have
jump
any
up.
socially conscious like message in his music
Yeah, I
ever.
mean, and he doesn't have to be socially conscious, but he's not cutting
But
edge. He's
don't you
not
think that's
doing
like a little
anything
bit
that's
a
dope.
part of hip hop though? Like, having like, some sort of like, like socially conscious message.
Yes and no. So here's what hip hop is. Hip hop is everything. So, in the 90s, people try to say, oh, yeah, it was all about the gangster rap. No, it was not. It was De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, it was Common. We had a variety. It was Will Smith, the Fresh Prince. All of that, MC Hammer, all of that was hip hop. It wasn't just this or that. So socially conscious, yeah, it's a big part of it, but it doesn't have to be. So Drake doesn't have to make a song about police and brutality, this that. It's just corny because it's formulaic. It's a formula. I mean, I could do it. I could give me a Drake track and I'd kill it. Just saying.
um, like a few months ago, Special Ed, he went on Drink Champs and he
He
was saying,
sounded like a fucking fool too. But
about
go ahead.
NWA bringing the edge, like destruction. What are your thoughts about that?
I love Special Ed. Special Ed was a dope ass MC, but now he's just dopey. That was just some real cornball, goofy shit to say because basically the stuff he was saying was anachronistic because he was saying what gangster rap did, what this happened, and that's that thing that gangster rap, everybody trying to be a gangster was late 90s. It was late 90s. That was like 96 on. In the early 90s, we still had everything. People have to remember in the early 90s, we still had Luke being nasty. We still had Hammer dancing. I mean, we had such a wide variety. So, what he was, and I'm going to be honest too, man. And this isn't because, I'm not from New York, because I did live there for a couple of years, but I'm just going to say New York people, New York hip hop people, they almost killed hip hop with their bias, with their bullshit. Oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. No, it doesn't. Even their whole 50 years of hip hop is so biased. It's just crazy, man. It's not. It ain't where you from. It's where you at.
Right. 100%. I wanted to get your opinion on this. I watched recently a DJ Vlad interview with Vanilla Ice, and he has an interesting relationship with the truth. I feel he's one of his claims is that he's taken credit for the money that founded Death Row. That's one of his claims. He's alleging, which like there's a that's a disputable claim, because like there's like rumor that like Pat Johnson actually like funded Death Row, the PCP kingpin, and then there's like he's also like made there's a dispute of like if he actually wrote Ice Ice Baby. And like I think Mario Chocolate Johnson, he claims like that the DOC actually wrote part of it, and he wrote it. That's how he was able to get the publishing. Do you remember that contention, that era? What are your thoughts about Vanilla Ice?
Yeah. I remember the rumor of Suge holding him out the window and making him sign over his publishing. That was never verified.
He,
I don't know who
he
actually.
denies that happened. But I
Of course he
watched.
would.
Yeah. he
Of course he would.
he implies that in like an interview, like on ABC at the time, but he never says he actually held him out the window. He
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I don't really know. I don't know any of that. I just know I hated Vanilla Ice because he was a cornball and he stole my fraternity's chant. That's what the alphas, that was our thing. Ice, ice, baby. So, and he stole that, and I wanted to give him a big soul slap for that. And that never
That's,
happened. But yeah, as far as his contention of oh, he did this, that, and the third,
maybe y'all should get a split in the publishing, man, because
I mean, we should have sued for it. We probably would have got it. we should have sued for. Could have sued Lil Jon when he did To the Windows to the Wall, because that belonged to the Alphas too. But as far as Vanilla Ice's contention, his relationship with Death Row, I think it's really, really convenient since Suge is in jail.
Right.
It's like, okay, if Suge was out roaming the street, well, would that bonehead be out, speaking recklessly? I think not.
What do you think, like, about Shug being in jail, and Keefy D being arrested this year? And basically there's a rumor like, that Diddy was involved in the murder for hire. And
Yeah, I don't really want to speculate on that because there's been so many rumors. I don't know anything to be factual. I just think it's kind of crazy that 27 years, 26, 27 years later, they get somebody. Yeah, I don't know. Why didn't that happen the year that he was killed? I mean, because those same rumors were floating around then that are floating around now. I mean, I don't know there to be any factual basis, anything tangible that I can point to.
I know you were saying like, your son plays you Drake. Is there any like new artists though that you do listen to that you're impressed?
Um, yeah, I mean he plays like R&B. He likes Giveon. He likes damn, who's it? He likes some Young Thug. He likes. I'm trying to remember some of these people. There's a few cats. He'll play them, and I go, "Hey, who is that?" So I mean, so there is some stuff out there that I like. And I like listening to what my son will play because this is a man who was, a young man who was raised on, I got in the car 2 years ago and it let me know who he was because I got in the car and he said, "Oh, let me play music," and he started bumping Tribe Called Quest. I mean, so he knows Tribe. He likes Rakim. I mean, we like some of the same music. I mean, and that goes for R&B too. I mean, he loves Prince. Michael Jackson is the man, but he also knows Bob Marley. You know what I mean? He knows Jimi Hendrix. He knows, a lot of the old school jazz artists. So he's listened to everything. So some of the stuff that he'll play, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Now that doesn't mean that I'm gonna be a fan of any of this stuff, but a lot of it I do like.
Yep. What's next for you in your career?
So I'm doing the documentary, and then I've got two more films uh, that I'm gonna do. Those are like the biggest thing on the horizon, but I'll give everybody a surprise. I'm bringing Rap Sheet back.
Oh,
Um, yeah, because there are a lot of guys out there and girls underground who are making really good music that just isn't popular. They don't know how to break through. They don't know what to do. So I'm going to do a conference and bring people together to give up some real information, and then I'm going to do a quarterly piece that'll be free, of course, direct distribution to kind of bring out the next wave of hip hop artists.
what would be your advice for people who are interested in pursuing a career in journalism or like publishing books or working in film?
I mean, everything's got to be independent at this stage in the game. I mean, you can break through, but I don't really know, like the economy of scale. Doing 5,000 books that you get 100% profit on, or doing 25,000 with a publisher. I mean, you gotta weigh the economy of scale and comparison. But I think, yeah, go out. Everything's online now, so go out and study the game and figure out, what makes sense to you and how to get in, and make a plan, work your plan, and make it happen.
Man, that brings up a great point because like what was like the transition of like, the internet? Like, I know the internet existed like in 92, but it wasn't what it is today. Like,
Not at all.
yeah. So how was that transition?
Well, the transition killed everything. And so some people came and rose like a phoenix out of the ashes, and some people just went away and, working at Walmart. you know, because what happened is that when everything went digital, the music industry mismanaged it. You know, they tried to sue college students for file sharing, and now file sharing is it. You know, when what they should have done was just create 4 file sharing companies and allow people to pay a small fee to get in and file share. But they tried to shut it down, and all that did was just make it go, you know, as far as magazines are concerned, they went away too because people stopped reading as much, and that was a huge problem. And so if you don't know how to get a magazine out there, it's tough. It's tough. And so for people who just want to be journalists, it's hard to find an avenue to make it make sense.
What are your thoughts about Snoop Dogg recently? He was talking about the streaming companies, how they're cheating artists. Like he got 1 billion streams and it equated to like $45,000.
Right. Well, again, when the music industry moves, they're gonna move with the money. And so if you're in a situation where you're independent and you don't really understand how things rock, or if you're not really in control, yeah, you're gonna get screwed. And I'm glad that someone as big as Snoop is speaking out because it's got to change. I mean, people either have to create another avenue and stop dealing with the current streaming avenues, or they have to figure something else out. But it's streaming is not working for today's artist, no matter what level you're on. But he's right, 1 billion streams and you get 45 G's, that's banana.
Yes. um, E40, he was recently saying that he's disappointed at the current state of hip hop. He feels like that a lot of people are just the same and it's a lot of copycats. Do you see that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why when special ed made that statement, I'm like, dude, that didn't really happen in the 90s. That happened after the 90s, where everybody was basically the same. That happened after the 90s, because even in the late 90s, you still had innovation. You still had good music being made that was divergent, that was just still beautiful and cool, and that was mainstream. But I think in after the 90s is when everything just became goofy and stale, you know.
What do you think about like female MCs today? Where like I heard you say like Queen Latifah, MC Light, and Yo Yo, that you were fans of their music, but it seems like there's not those type of female rappers. Like you
And they're
have
not trying to be. They're not trying to be. I mean, all three of those women you just named were fucking beautiful, and we never saw their ass. We never saw their asses. We wanted to because they were fine, but we never saw their asses. And it's like, you look at somebody like Ice Spice, who's a beautiful woman, but she comes off like a nasty ass tramp because her ass is always out. Like that's her gimmick, to be out there with her ass out. You look at whores like what's that retarded woman, retarded Cardi B. You look at chicks like her whole thing is just being a nasty whore, just filthy, just garbage, and Megan Thee Stallion is fucking gorgeous, but their presentation, it's just trash. And then that little roach, not sexy red. She looks like somebody put lipstick on a roach. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. Not to mention, it's not a lot of talent. Just being whores. I mean, like, and Nicki Minaj. I mean, she's like right in that mix, but Nicki's actually talented. That's the crazy part. You know, I mean, she can really kill it. So it's just bad.
right. Like, are you kind of disappointed though that like talented female MCs aren't pushed to the forefront because you don't have
Well,
there are some like I like Rock, like Shelly Rhymes, No Name. There are some.
yeah, I'm familiar with Rock, not the other ones though. But yeah, I mean, am I disappointed? Sure, I'm disappointed all the way across the board, male and female MCs. I mean, we don't have people making it to the mainstream who are just dope. I mean, just really just killing it. They're not. I mean, people give that little crazy piece of shit bitch Kanye a whole lot of credit, but he's just not. He's just okay. I don't think he would have survived in the early '90s when people were really, really killing it. I mean, he's okay, but he's not that dope. So I'm disappointed
You mean as an
across
MC
the board.
or a producer? Because I would say
Oh,
you you
I
I
mean,
think he could have survived in the 90s as a producer. I don't think he could have survived as an MC. Like, I mean,
I guess. I
as
guess.
a,
I mean, I'm not impressed with Kanye. He's had a couple of cuts. Recently there was another cut my son played for me that I was like, "Ooh, shit, that's banging." But I'm just not that impressed, man. I'm not that impressed.
what do you think about, like, his rants? Because it seems like he does some like bizarre behavior. It was like a few months ago where he was, I guess, like receiving fellatio from his wife on like one of those public boats in Italy. He's made like some allegiances to Trump, some really bizarre stuff, running for president.
Yeah, yeah, he probably gave Trump fellatio. I mean, Kanye, I do believe is mentally ill, but I also think he needs a good ass kicking. Moms Mabley said it about children. She's a comedian from the '70s and '80s. She says nothing wrong with these kids that a good ass whooping won't fix. And I'd like to sit down with Kanye and beat the shit out of him.
Well,
And every time,
I think like a
huh?
lot of times people don't consider he was in that really serious car accident, and it's a possibility he could have traumatic brain injury. That's a real thing. People,
So listen, Ryan, if you have something that is mentally deficient, something that is mentally off kilter, that's one thing. But there is no diagnosis called asshole. And Kanye is an asshole. So outside of losing his mom, which was horrible, outside of I do believe he really is mentally ill. All that is bad. But when you go and you put the MAGA hat on, white lives matter, when you say slavery was a choice, that's just that little bitch is just being an ass. And he just really needs somebody to beat the dog dirt shit out of him for saying reckless shit like that. It's like, stop, dude. And I don't understand why black people keep calling him a genius when he keeps telling people he doesn't read. Like, where's your genius coming from? You didn't invent anything. You haven't said anything revolutionary and ingenious. You're just a little mental midget. And I'm really surprised that black women haven't tried to assassinate him because he hates black women. What I mean? He won't date a black woman to save his life. So I mean, I don't get it. He's nothing. He's a little piece of shit who's just speaking out, saying crazy shit so he can, keep his name out there. That's it.
the 2024 election is approaching. Like, Donald Trump will likely win the Republican nomination.
Mhm.
You know, all our choices are horrible. Like, what do you feel about, like, the future?
Well, I think really what's going to have to happen is that black people have to stand up to the Democratic Party because they think that they own us. For that bastard to say Biden to say vote for me or you ain't black. If I was near him, I would have gone to jail because I would have slapped the shit out of him. Like I don't let white people talk to me like that. That was reckless. And his little hoe, Kamala, well, I'm not gonna do anything specifically for black people. And she meant that shit. But
Yeah.
they're doing shit specifically in Chicago, stepping over veterans, over homeless people.
Right.
They're bringing these fucking immigrants in. They're getting money every month. They're getting housing. They're getting EBT. But you got kids who can't eat, little black kids who can't eat, and they're stepping over them. Fuck the Democrats. Fuck the Republicans too. And they want us to be afraid of Trump. I'm not afraid of any of these people. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not so afraid of Trump that I'm going to vote for some more racists. Biden's a racist bitch too. Like both sides. Kamala set a record in California for how many black men she imprisoned. You
Yeah.
know, so I mean, on both sides, it's just been really, really horrible. And the fact that black people are afraid in general and continue to throw their vote at the Democrats, that's why they don't give a damn about us. They don't. I mean, They killed Chrisette Michele